This is SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. I'm your host, Todd Kirk. I'm joined by my compadre, Casey Trujillo, who's my ever-present co-host. And today we have an awesome guest on, Carson Heady, who is a best-selling author, and he is a sales guru over at Microsoft. And we're pumped to have Carson on. Carson, welcome to SaaS Therapy, my friend.
Guys, thanks for having me. Really honored to be here, and always love chopping it up with some other sellers.
Carson, this is going to be awesome. Todd, it's cool to see your Duolingo is paying off with the compadre. I'm impressed by your Spanish.
True.
Carson, first and foremost, tell everybody about your podcast, how they can find you. I mean, you are always producing out great LinkedIn content. I'm like, one of the questions I'm going to have is how do you even find time to do it? And you're going to tell me AI, but I know you're too good, so you're going to do both. But Carson, tell me a little bit about how people can find more information about you just right at the beginning.
Yeah, I am a big fan of LinkedIn, and that's not a product endorsement. Obviously, Microsoft owns LinkedIn, so I have to preface by saying that, but I'm definitely very active on LinkedIn, X, or the former artist known as Twitter, and I do a lot of blogging as well at carsonvheady.com.
Awesome. Now, Carson, you've been in sales, I guess, for how long would you say? How long has your sales career been?
Well, I mean, that depends. I was selling my mom on things while I was probably walking around in diapers. But I've been about 25 years across some big organizations that are household names and some smaller orgs as well. Obviously, today I work at Microsoft, coming up on 12 years. So I spent a long time at AT&T, and then a few jumps, hops, and skips in between.
What would you say? So I'm just as we jump in, so people understand your sales background. So, I mean, you've been at Microsoft, and Microsoft hasn't always been a SaaS company, but for the last 10, 15 years, they've been 100% a SaaS company. And, you have background in both. What would you say has been the biggest shift for you moving from maybe sales on, I don't know, hardware or phone systems at AT&T to then being almost all straight software?
I mean, it's night and day difference. I kind of cut my teeth in call centers where, selling long distance plans and high speed internet back when DSL was launching, all the way to, consultative services and cloud transformation. Very different. It was more of a one call close in the call center, knowing that you'd likely never speak to that customer again. And, really having to build very swift rapport and influence change. And, here, some of my largest deals have had multi-year sales cycles. And so it's really all about getting into the right executive line of business, making sure that you're earning the right to be a trusted advisor and bringing in the right resources as well. My time in the call center was very lone wolfish, all the way to now where I may have 80 people touch a project with me. So a lot of it's orchestration and internal selling. There's a lot of mechanics to that did not exist in a one call close call center.
So Carson, as we think through a little bit about today's selling environment, it was interesting. We've had a bunch of customer success leaders on, and they say the number one skill set that they're hoping that their CSMs start to develop is that sales ability to be able to have empathetic listening, to be able to ask, questions that really get to the heart of the matter of what they're trying to solve for. Carson, as you've been coaching, if you've been pumping out these sales newsletters and doing different things, if you were to narrow sales down into three qualities, three skill sets that you have to have, what would be your top three? I mean, there's so many, but if you just had to go down to three, what would that look like?
Networking, resourcefulness, and resilience. I had a mentor that told me a few years back, your network is your net worth. And I think relationships are what actually beget deals. I've never worried about a number a day in my life. I've always obsessed over people and process. And I say resourcefulness because, sometimes, you're going to be relationship strapped or resource strapped, and you've got to figure out, okay, I am stuck here. How can I look at this in a different way? I've leaned into where, my leaders or my team would say, this is the biggest problem that we have is contactability, or getting into these other executive suites or line of business. And, while the name Microsoft can open doors in some cases, sometimes execs or board members aren't thinking about us. They might be thinking about the competition, or they might not be thinking about technology as a catalyst to solve a problem. And so it's more about investing in those relationships and understanding what those customers want their legacy to be, and helping empower that and helping them solve problems, and differentiating from, just another cloud vendor, as opposed to just selling a widget. And then lastly, the resilience piece. I can tell you a lot of amazing stories of deals that I've won, but I can also tell you a lot of ones where I got socked in the mouth, or, there were deals that had massive ups and downs, or, we lost, we thought we were the incumbent and we lost at the last second. And, I think with each one of these, you've got to take the learning and take the experience and, plan the next play, like a pro athlete. You got to think about, okay, what have I learned and how can I see around corners better because of what I've learned, and always be moving forward. Those are the three key attributes for me, and frankly, for any seller that I've seen be successful.
Man, Microsoft loses deals from time to time.
It's shocking. Sometimes, yeah. It's interesting. And actually, what's funny, Todd, it kind of goes back to the question you asked before. I mean, seeing the different iterations of an organization. I actually had the good fortune of joining the same month that Satya Nadella became CEO. So that stock trajectory from $30 a share when I started, over $500 a share, that's been on my watch too, but I credit Satya a little bit more. But you look at the transformation of, it stopped being everything is a Microsoft answer to, hey, how can Microsoft actually integrate into what you do and complement it and or make it better? How can we bring unique resources to bear and not necessarily replace what you're doing, but augment it? And that, I think, was the game changer.
I don't know if you know this, Carson. So Casey's obviously a sales guy. He's been in sales for his career. I would say everybody is in sales, but I'm not traditionally a person in a sales role with a quota, trying to go out and close business. And one of the things that I've struggled with when I think about selling is the balance between helping the customer understand the value of what you can offer. Right. And I used to do professional services and do programs for Microsoft, and I would be in with sellers who are constantly like, you got to tell them about this. Make sure you tell them about this. Make sure you do this. And a lot of times the customer just didn't care about that thing. Yeah. And so I was in this position of like, well, I want to listen to what the customer has to say and give them what they care about, rather than just trying to cram my, the thing that I'm going to be comped on down their throat. But obviously there's a balance, right? Because the customer doesn't know what they don't know, and you want to educate them. But how do you balance, bringing new ideas and new concepts to the customer, and also reacting to like the emotion that they feel or the things that are important to them?
Yeah, you first have to earn their trust. They're not going to care about what you care about until you care about what they care about, and you show some immediate value around it. Sellers are a dime a dozen. I mean, and especially with the rise of AI, I mean, there's so many automated messages that these folks are getting now that, the key element is, how can I actually earn a conversation with this person? And how can I actually show up informed and offering value? We're still in a very buyer-centric market. I'd say more now than ever. There's more noise that our buyers have, and they need us differently than they've ever needed us before as well. And I think I've always tried to lean in, frankly, to the opposite of what I think most sellers trap is. I didn't come into Microsoft with the burden of a lot of technical prowess. I was just an old sales guy. And so I knew how to build community and how to build relationships and orchestrate projects. And I focused, rather than, hey, go tell this person about this nice shiny object or this new product name. No, it was more about, how can I really understand this person's business? Like, what is their remit? What are they responsible for? And where are they really struggling? And can I help them? And don't get me wrong, like sometimes I'm not the answer. And I've even gone so far as to introduce them to one of my competitors, where I had a friend at the competition, and I said, here, go talk to this person, because they're actually, going to be able to take care of you better. Because for me, it's all about the relationship. And you better believe now that person knows that they can come back to me and they're going to get the honest truth. But it's less about talking about products, and it's more about uncovering outcomes. And 9 times out of 10, the greatest value that I can bring a customer is I can demystify my organization's offerings. Now, I work at a behemoth organization. It's very challenging to understand our licensing and all the changes that are always transpiring. And so I often tell my customer, hey, I can help you navigate these waters. A lot of times I can bring in smart people and get out of the way so that magic can happen. I'm a direct conduit to getting funding and resources from this organization. So anything you, Mr., Mrs. Customer, can arm me with, I can go back and sell that business to my leadership and hopefully unlock dollars and discounts and resources and things that can help you do what you're trying to do, solve the problems you're trying to solve. But I can't do anything until I know what those problems are. If you focus on making your customer the hero and you lift up everybody else around you, your colleagues, your partners, your vendors, that's how you win. So I have really obsessively tried to focus on how can I help my customers emerge as winners. That's always served me well.
Carson, my AI prompt me that I need to talk about AI. So I'm going to ask a question about AI because my AI asked me to. So, how do you deal with the customers that still are like, hey, my users aren't ready for AI, or we're not ready for AI? I'm going to ask you that question first. And then after you answer that, I want to go to the customer that's all in on AI and every application that they have as AI. How do you navigate the warfare of using your AI versus another AI versus another AI versus another AI? So let's start with the first question of, you have customers that are concerned about it. What are some of the best practices you could give to our audience? And then 2, hey, I'm in a battle because this person doesn't know which AI tool to use when. How do I separate myself? So if you could answer both those, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I love the questions, Casey. Both very timely. I mean, when I think about the customers that are claiming that they're not ready, first off, you got to consider the source. I do think that, like, for instance, even just this week, I had an IT leader say, yeah, we're not ready. We're not looking at this. We're stuck. We're blocked, whatever the case may be. There's not resources. There's not interest. However, I just kind of went to other leaders in that same organization, and I got different answers, because I find often that the board is telling some of these leaders, hey, we need to figure out what we're going to do with AI. Some of them think that they can, or they want to do it internally and keep out a vendor, or however they view my company, or however they view other companies. So they may be trying to do something homegrown. They may be trying to keep us at arm's length, which is all the more reason why we do have to differentiate. And that kind of bleeds into the second question. Now, the other thing too, I mean, we can respectfully challenge that, because what's the real power of AI, right? Like, if you're telling me you're not ready for AI, or it's not something that you're seriously considering currently, I would have to respectfully wonder, like, how are you looking at new potential commercialized models? How are you gleaning new intel about those that you serve, your constituents or other organizations that you serve and support, or sectors that you sell into? Because I often look at, like, we need to be an additive, and we need to be doing it in a meaningful way, but it's got to be giving us some type of insights that makes us more effective. And so I would point it toward the problems that maybe they're having as an organization, and don't just do AI for AI's sake. And I think that bleeds into the second question, Casey, because when I think about organizations that are trying to figure out, like, okay, this AI versus that AI, there are a lot of them that are exploring. And frankly, that is normal and that's good. Had another customer scenario recently where we actually read a press release of something that they did with a competitor, right? And we had IT telling us, oh yeah, we're not really going down this AI thing. We're stuck, we're whatever. But another part of this organization very much did. So what does that tell me? That tells me, number one, I've got to get other contacts in these organizations. But number two, I have to differentiate. See, cloud is a commodity, and customers can buy these solutions anywhere. And don't get me wrong, and I think that the costs of some of these are going to continue to go down. But I will also say, I don't encourage organizations to boil the ocean. Find that one or two really meaningful things that we can do with AI, and let's do those. Like, if we can build, so many organizations right now are doing something around knowledge management, or, even internal chatbots to tap into 30, 40 years of historical data that's in just a ridiculous amount of silos. And how can I now put that information at my own employees' fingertips to save them time? Productivity is the easy one. But then when I look at even my own processes, like I think personal stories often also resonate with executives. And I tell people like my experience as a team leader and how I leverage AI to construct agendas for one-on-ones, or help me write the notes that I send to my team in the morning at a stand-up, or help me craft messaging to go to customers or to execute different solution plays that we're doing. And then lastly, like I do my own newsletters. It used to take me an hour to construct a newsletter every month. Now it takes 5 minutes with AI. And so, I think being able to look at where are we spending some of these things, I challenge people to look at every process that they're ingrained in the course of a day, and just think respectfully of like, where could AI play here? I don't think we need to over AI, and certainly I'm fully bought in on the importance of authenticity and doing things the right way. But you can absolutely point AI at a lot of problems and things that take up a lot of time, and it can give you a lot of time back. That's valuable.
Yeah, it's a really good nugget there to think about. And for anybody who, one of the things that I think is challenging for a lot of sellers is they might not use the software that they're trying to sell on a day-to-day basis and actually see and believe and understand the value that it's offering to them individually or to the team. And so there's a lot of credibility that comes when you're seeing that yourself. But you said something, Carson, that I'm curious about. I want to dig into a little bit more. I would guess, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I would guess that the majority of the relationships that exist with a Microsoft rep at any sort of enterprise is usually going to be somebody in the IT department. And you pointed out to the fact that like, hey, well, maybe there's competitors that are being brought in to teams that you don't historically talk to. So with AI, do you feel like you're seeing more of that, where there's a broadening of, or a more willingness to kind of go out of the traditional channels for purchasing? And how are you trying to navigate that?
To a degree. I think that's always been something that sellers have been somewhat lackluster at overall. And I think it's a variety of reasons. First, it's hard to do. You might get swatted down if you try to reach out to other executives, and IT and procurement can keep you in a box. And I've respectfully told IT and procurement, like, hey, I absolutely want you along for the ride. And I respect that you want to be read in on everything, and I can do that. But I also want to champion you as innovators. And frankly, these executives want to talk to me in my company. And so I'm going to do what Microsoft pays me to do, which is own the all-up relationship here. And I'll read you along where you need to be. And then I just go out and reach out to these executives. About 10 years ago, I started really building this Moneyball demand generation engine, and I used LinkedIn Sales Navigator religiously to go out and reach out to 100, 200, 500 executives in different organizations. And I literally would take customers that weren't doing anything with us to 9-figure deals within a couple of years. I generated over $1 billion of revenue with this platform. I even presented it to Satya Nadella and Judson Althoff and some of our other senior leaders. And it didn't happen overnight, though. It was very much built on the premise that, we have to get into these other lines of business. We have to develop these relationships. We have to understand what they're trying to do and create. But we also have to frame up, what is that lens? What is that story? Why do we matter in finance or HR or marketing? And so you have to have that frame of reference to be able to, earn that meeting. And on the same token, like, where is AI playing? I mean, frankly, it's amazing. And I play around with AI all the time, and I don't purport to be an expert. But, to be able to go out to an organization's website, to find their mission statement, to find their publicly available information and reports, to be able to look up an executive on LinkedIn. I mean, you can feed all this stuff into your Copilot or into your AI engine, and you can have it write you an email, and the prompt literally is, give me a subject line that will maximize open rates. Give me a 3-sentence hook that will immediately capture the attention of this executive based on their LinkedIn profile, based on their mission statement of their organization, what they're trying to do as a company, and get me a meeting booked. And I mean, I kid you not, I will do this, and I've tinkered with these things, but I mean, you can focus on the quality of your message, the quantity of your outreach, and then your consistency by which you prospect. And over the years, I have meticulously focused on how can I go out and get these conversations. It's not going to happen 100% of the time. But if I reach out to 100 people in an organization, I'll get a meeting. And you just sometimes need that one quality meeting for the domino to fall. The biggest deal I ever signed at Microsoft was a 9-figure deal with a customer that was doing nothing in Azure. And within 2 years, they signed a 9-figure deal. And the reason why is because my team and I were so entrenched from prospecting into different lines of business that even though they had 7 C-level changes in that 2 years, we were embedded in every part of the organization. And those different parts of the organization cared about this deal. So even when the deal kind of stalled and died, like we had other parts of that organization that were championing like, hey, we want this to happen. And that's why I think AI is so powerful now, because it can really help us be more effective at getting the meeting and helping us stay focused while there's so much noise out there. And frankly, to your point, Todd, while everybody else is also trying to get the same meetings you are, you've got to stand out amidst the noise.
That's great, Carson. And what's interesting for our CSM members that are on this podcast, I think one of the surveys we did is the number one reason for churn was they lost their POC. You can't just rely on that one person, right? Go back to your point number one of networking. How do I get to these different lines of business? How do I get past that individual that I'm working with? Bring them along, read them along. Like you said, I think that's fantastic. Carson, again, I'm the master of 2 questions, which you're never supposed to do as an interviewer, but hey, I don't follow the rules. What's the best piece of sales advice you've ever received, and what's the worst piece of sales advice you've ever received?
The best sales advice that I've ever received: control the controllables. It's so easy to get lost in the day-to-day. And I have a mentor of mine that taught me about the value of the balcony view. I'm a big fan of Superman. And so like I picture Superman and Superman Returns, like hovering above the earth with his eyes closed, just kind of listening to all the signals. You can't respond to every cat that's up in a tree. You have to like listen for, okay, where's the fire engine bell that I need to like swim in and help that and have maximum impact. And so the key thing is people are going to be pulling on you all the time. Sometimes you got to be selfish and you got to have ruthless discipline with your own schedule so that you can prioritize what actually matters. I pin chats of my boss, my direct reports, my colleagues, key deals. That's it. That's the stuff that gets immediate attention from me. And the rest of the stuff, like I get to as soon as I can. But control the controllables. Don't get lost in the stuff that you can't control. The worst advice that I've ever gotten has really been anything that has been widget or deal or KPI focused. It has been all the things where I've had a micromanager or a data-driven spreadsheet jockey that has told me, you need to go out and sell more of X. What are you doing to sell more of X? Because it's misdirection. It's misguided. Their heart's in the right place. They're probably good people. But the problem is they've been brought up in a culture maybe that isn't really, truly effective, that puts people at the heart of what we do. Because here's the thing. Yes, I agree that a spreadsheet is great because it helps me diagnose. But for instance, if I'm looking at a spreadsheet and it says I need more KPIs of this, I've got to look at my process for that. And I've got to think about how can I adjust my process so that it can yield more of that product. Or it could be like, are we not having the right conversation? Are we not uncovering the right things in discovery that could lead to that product? It isn't about go sell more of this. And I think really the worst advice that I've ever gotten has been to focus too much on what the numbers are telling us. We've got to focus on what people are telling us, with the numbers informing how we go about it.
Yeah, see that goes back to the thing that I struggle with the most as someone who doesn't come from a sales background, and maybe it's just because I overthink things too much, which is because if you want to listen to the customer and you want to have the right conversation that they want to have, but there's an agenda on both sides, right? And those might not always be aligned. And so I guess, like, what advice would you give to somebody who is stepping into their first conversation with an executive at a large organization and trying to close a deal, knowing the fact that they may not know how to speak the language of an executive and really be able to create that environment where things are starting to gel? Like, what would your advice be to like somebody like me? I'm going to walk in now. I got to go talk to the executive first time. I'm not a super experienced seller. What would you do to help me be ready for that type of a situation? What do you think?
Got a lot of answers to that, Todd. Like, read The Jolt Effect by Matt Dixon and Ted McKenna. It's an interesting book. It came out, and I had the pleasure of interviewing Matt on one of my podcasts a couple of years ago. He also wrote The Challenger Sale, which I think a lot of people have heard of. And what it's all about is in the era of all this hybrid and remote work, they studied a lot of calls and they studied what effective things were said on calls. I mean, we've always been of the mindset that it's about fear of missing out, and that if we create FOMO in our customers that they'll buy. It works sometimes, but what actually works is fear of messing up. These executives and these customers are not married to their course of action or their path of mediocrity. They just don't want to be the one who makes the call that messes up because they're afraid of getting fired or losing their job or, disrupting their nest egg. And so the reason that they don't go with us is because we haven't appropriately de-risked the decision. The other thing I would say, Todd, is, these executives, they're people. They put on their pants one leg at a time, just like we do. And sometimes we can be intimidating to them, believe it or not, because, salespeople come in and they spout off all this stuff, and executives want to be able to trust this intel. They want to make a brilliant decision. They want to be a hero to their organization, but they don't know what they can trust. And so I think the key element is, how can you relate to this person on a personable element? One of the best relationships I ever had with a customer, I actually met them on LinkedIn. I saw that they were coming into this new organization that I supported, and they were moving from another organization in another city. And I reached out to them on LinkedIn, welcomed them, said, "Hey, look, I see you're moving to St. Louis. I can help you with places to live, or send your kid to school, or restaurants, or whatever. Let me know. Plus, I'd love to meet with you when the time's right and things settle, and I'll tell you the history of our relationship." They had 6 business units, and only one of them worked with Microsoft at the time. And what was interesting is, and their team was great, but, they had silos, and all of them decided which organization they worked with. So the other 5 worked with my competition. Well, I beat the competition to the punch because of that message. I was in his office the next week, and, we kind of broke bread, and I said, "What's our ideal relationship?" He said, "I want a relationship where we care about each other's timelines and we make each other winners." And I really took that to heart. So much so that we worked together on a digital transformation plan, and we made sweet deals together. But what was really impactful was when their renewal was due, and the new team, after I no longer even touched this customer anymore, went 6 months and they could not get this deal to sign. They called me, and I was still in town, and they gave me carte blanche to go out and close this deal, whatever I needed to do to get the deal done. I got it done in 45 minutes. And the reason why was because I sat down and I basically looked across the table, and I'm like, "Look, what do you need in this deal? What matters most to you? We got to be at this price point. Okay. Can we get to this price point? Yeah, we probably could. Okay, great. Do you care what's in this deal? Because this is what Microsoft is going to care about. This is what's going to pay my team. So there are ways that we can reskew some of your items where Microsoft realizes revenue and can report these numbers to Wall Street, and they look good, and they're going to care about that. And so I can get you to this price point with these things in the deal, and my company's going to be super, super happy." Done. Super transparent. Sometimes you've got to be the person that can demystify your organization. You can let them see behind the curtain. You can be super communicative. But at the end of it, I wanted him to win. And that was the key element. And so, Todd, when I think about going to see this executive for the first time, your mission is figure out what would help this person win? What would solve a problem that really bothers them or that they're trying to solve? How can you be a difference maker in that process? Because they can buy cloud anywhere. The differentiator is you. How can you uniquely serve this person? And often mine is, I've been here 12 years, and I can beg, borrow, and steal and ask for favors to get anybody, our CEO even, to help my customers if that's what it takes to help them win. And that's the value that I bring. Everybody adds value, but you've got to figure out what's your unique value that you can bring your customer.
Carson, how do you have that tough conversation where you're not feeling that transparency with your customer? So you feel like you're being transparent, but man, that customer is just holding back. Gosh, I can't get them to really be honest. Yeah, let's do this and that, blah, blah, blah. And you do everything, and then they keep holding on to information, and you just know that, hey, I'm not getting the full truth here. Carson, what's some things you've done to try to level set there? And I know nothing ever works 100% of the time, except for when it works 60% of the time. But that's a cologne, I think. But anyways, how does that work?
I wrote about one of these stories in depth in my book, The Show Must Go On. And I had a customer years ago. It's a name brand. If I said it, everybody would know it. And the CIO would not give me the time of day. He literally said, in the email back, he said, "I don't talk to vendors." He told people behind the scenes, he hated my company, and was just not going to talk to me. And so I had to make the conscious decision. I went to the board, I went to the CEO, the CFO, and I actually got a relationship with the treasurer, and I flew out to LA and I did a demo and I had a conversation, and I figured out what the CIO was actually trying to solve for. And they were trying to build this internal homegrown solution, and they were trying to create value for their vendors, and they just couldn't do it. And but they sure as heck didn't want my help or my company's help. And so, but armed with that intel, that's the power. And so I leveraged these relationships with the board and the CEO and the CFO to force a meeting with the CIO. So picture this. I'm sitting across the table from this CIO who would not give me the time of day up until this point. The CFO, the CEO, the board. I had actually flown in an executive from Microsoft. I had a partner and I had a couple other people in the room. And this CIO, man, I mean, his looks would have cut through me. He looked right at me and he said, I cannot believe that you forced a meeting and wasted all of our time just for me to have to tell you no in person. And I said this person's name, and I said, I completely understand where you're coming from. However, based on all the conversations that I'm having with your team and your employees, who are very flattering to you, by the way, I know what you're trying to achieve. And I know why. You're trying to unlock all this data that you don't have access to today so that you can add all this value to these agents that you support and these other organizations that you're touching. And I can help you. And I said, give me one project to sink my teeth into. And if I can't deliver you a win, you'll never hear from me again. We walked out of there. I had something that I could sink my teeth into. I brought in a partner. We built a customized solution around what they wanted to give to their agents, and we got the deal done. Guy still didn't like me, but got the deal done. And that's what matters. You can unlock anybody's why. And that's the key element. This guy just wanted to create a win. He wanted to solve like this unsolvable problem for his organization. And if you can do that, you can do anything. And it wasn't about, let me sell you this widget. It was about, wow, let me dig in and bring in the right people to solve this problem and unlock this value and create this solution that you can give to all of your vendors. Like, we can do all those things. And we did it.
That's a great story. You mentioned the Challenger sale earlier, right? And I think I love your point there in the sense that people are not necessarily looking for a friend. They're looking for someone who can push them to a new state where they want to be. And sometimes that doesn't mean that you're going to be liked, right? So you can still focus on building a network and using relationship, but you need to do it in a way that challenges and pushes rather than just like, empathizes and, sends fruit baskets. I don't know. But.
And I take an interesting approach to that. There is a value to the fruit baskets when you say that. I think about that episode of The Office when Michael Scott and Dwight were driving around giving baskets.
Where are the turtles?
Right. But you know what's valuable? What I love about Michael Scott was that he had all of those cards of the information about his customers. He knew them. And that's why they did business with him over Dwight and the proven entity of Dunder Mifflin when Michael went off and ran his own company. And what's cool about what you just said too, Todd, is like when I think about sometimes, and this probably won't surprise you, I was very unorthodox as a Microsoft seller. I'm even more unorthodox as a Microsoft manager. I like to roll up my sleeves. I do a lot of my own prospecting with and for the team. Sometimes a seller has to be like Batman. You've got to be the hero that can be the villain. And sometimes I will do the prospecting to the executive, and that organization gets furious. But guess what? My AE, they still look clean. They can be like, I'll tell my manager to stand down. And I can just kind of like, I weaseled in so that they can, and they kept their hands clean. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help my team win and the customer organization win. And I think to your point, like, and I always go back, we're not looking for friends. I love the movie Wall Street. If you want a friend, buy a dog. It's true. Like, you're not always going to be liked. And even when you win around this game, like, you're only one day until the scoreboard goes back to 0 and people are screaming at you again. So, that's why, back to the resilience topic, that's why resilience to win in this game over and over again.
Okay, Carson, we're getting into the weeds. We're getting the issues here, and we're going to throw some people into some therapy here off of this one. Carson, how do you work with other team members? man, I don't want to bring that CSM on this call. They just provide zero value. Oh, I'm getting forced to bring in this partner. Oh, I got a technical specialist. They're so boring. They don't even get to what the customer is actually talking about. How do you advise your team members to work when they have different counterparts, they have a different manager, and you're all trying to work together, but everybody has their own KPIs and goals they're trying to hit? I mean, sometimes we self-inflict our own challenges with our customers because everybody's running down a different lane because CSMs feel like they need to do this to get the renewal. The AE feels they need to do this. Someone needs to hit this to get their Azure quota number. How do you make it all work? What's some best practices you can give everyone?
Yeah, I had a customer a couple of years ago. I had like 80 people that touched this customer. I mean, it's just, there's so many personalities, perspectives, and egos sometimes. And you got to realize that everybody's hearing noise. And so like a lot of times I always tell my team when they don't understand why an extended team member acts the way they do, I'm like, you got to understand, you're not privy to like their conversations with their manager. Like you don't know what they're being coached to do and what they're being told to do. That's why you've got to know them on a personal level. You've got to understand their motivation and their why. A few years back, my team would come to me. I was an ATU manager at the time, and so account team unit, and I had make my AEs coming to me like, I can't get my specialists to pay attention to me. They're off selling to bigger accounts or other customers or whatever, and I can't get them to pay attention to me. And I said, okay, let's fix that. So we would get on with the specialist team or the stew, and we basically say like, look, if I'm going to go out and master creating conversations that get you paid, that equate directly to your paycheck and you winning, what does that look like? What are the most lucrative conversations that I can pass the baton to you on? Arm me with what I need to know to go out and unlock those doors. What titles do you want to meet with? And what are the workloads that you want to drive? I'm going to go out and master it. And I did. I created a program called Plays That Get You Paid. And I would meticulously go out and prospect. So, I was talking earlier about kind of my Moneyball demand generation engine. Yep. I'm going out to these executives and I'm having those exact conversations to unlock. Like, okay, what are the problems you're trying to solve? But like, how are you thinking about leveraging data? When you think about like, what's the current posture around security? What are challenges that you're having today with organizations that you serve? Because we have marketplace solutions and we can create solutions with our customers and put them in our marketplace and co-sell and create whole new commercialized engines with our customers. Like I got to think big picture about the money conversations. And I went out and I meticulously executed those plays because think about it. When I talk about like the quantity of outreach, I'm reaching out, and even today, like I put my money where my mouth is. I've run the nonprofit sales team for Microsoft in North America for the last 2 years. Whew. I've accumulated over 30,000 customer contacts in my time through marketing insights that we get, and also going out and combing Sales Navigator. And so when I execute a play, I may execute a webinar or like an AI workshop to 30,000 people. And it's like shooting fish in a barrel. I'm scheduling meetings left and right to talk about how we are investing funding dollars for their AI exploration. And now I've got a really hot lead that I can hand over to my stew. And so they love me. It's instead of like giving them nothing or like giving them some weekly not qualified opportunity, I'm handing them a Glengarry lead. Hey, this customer's hot and ready to pop and they want to talk about your solution today. Let's go. And so I created a situation by which they loved working with me because they knew they could count on me. And so it wasn't about me. Like, take yourself out of the equation when you have these blockers. Think about the people that you're trying to serve and support. So like, oh gosh, I got to bring in a partner, or oh gosh, I got to bring in this CSAM or whatever it is. You've got to flip that, and you've got to think about what is this person's unique skill or superpower? How can I highlight them or make them a hero? What do they really care about? Because here's the thing. Sometimes these folks that you work with, they don't necessarily want to do or care about some of the things that maybe their role dictates or their manager tells them to do. Amen. If you can divide and conquer and figure out this magical way to work together, my gosh, like I've had so many great relationships over the years with different specialists and partners that like we just figured out something that worked for us and we executed it. Partnerships come out to people. Like everybody's had a great relationship or a great scenario with a partner, and they've also probably had a crappy situation with the same partner. It's like find people invest in those relationships, and that's how you win.
Todd, I got to call something out real quick. So I'm picking up golf. So I'll go to the driving range, right? And
He's not picking up golf, Carson. He's terrible.
Immediately as I go to the range, you know who golfs. You can see it by their swing. You see how the ball takes off, right? And then you got the other golfers like me that are hacks that hit the dirt, and the dirt flies farther than the ball. I want to call something out that Carson's done repeatedly in this podcast, just for everyone listening. If you go back and listen to how many times Carson says, "So what would that look like?" He consistently puts the onus of the vision in the hands of the person he's talking to, so they express what that looks like. And then from there, Carson has adjusted to how he's going to approach that. Well, in order for us to get here, we would need to be here. We need to have this from you. We need to do this, right? But he starts with them telling and walking through their vision. I just want to call that out, that it's such a natural sales skill that he has. It's just fluid and nice when you go to the golf course and see someone just crush a ball. Just that one simple, natural phrase that he's consistently used of what does that look like? I just want to call that out to the audience. You better take that one to the bank and use that all the time. I mean, that's the best piece of advice I could give everyone listening today.
It's an astute observation, Casey. And when I think about like, what are the things that sellers ask me about most? I mean, it's like being blocked or being told no or being ghosted, or, you think you have all this momentum. I mean, it starts from the get-go. Like, it starts from, you've got to understand their vision, and then you've got to establish mutual milestones and mutual accountability. We build out maps, and it's a living, breathing document between the two of us. And I'll lob it to the customer and say, hey, keep me honest. Like, this is where, I need your input on who are going to be the stakeholders on your side. These are the stakeholders on my side. We may have 20 projects that we came up with the first time that we met. Over the time that we meet, stuff may go up and down in priority. Some of the stuff we may slash, but we've got to agree on the criticality of some of these milestones. And you better believe if something is coming up in danger zone and I'm afraid that it's going to slip and I'm being ghosted, that's when I'm going to say something like, hey, you indicated to me that this was a priority and you were trying to unlock this problem. I've indicated the importance of doing it by this date because we will not otherwise be able to deliver it by your date. I have resources that I have asked to be at the ready to dive in to do this work. Do I need to tell them to go back to their regular day job, or are we going to be starting work? You'll get an answer one way or the other. Like, I need a yes or a no, not a maybe so. I don't want to be ghosted. I don't want to be waffling. And if it's a no, great. Like, let me know that, because then I can go sell somewhere else. But the key element is it's got to be about mutual accountability, transparency, communication. And it's all about them. You've got to keep bringing up their vision. You told me this was a priority. And if it still is, we need to start work.
Oh, so good, Carson. Okay, I want to be a little bit of a challenger myself here, because one of the things that I love about Microsoft, and have been in the Microsoft space forever, is that Microsoft is such a versatile organization with so many resources to bring to bear that you can almost solve any problem, right? So the idea of identifying projects and opportunities is very, very vast for you, mostly because the organization is a platform and it's a bazillion applications and its infrastructure and its services and a million other things, right? So you just have so much to at your corner. What would you say to a person who might be listening and say, yeah, that's all well and good for Carson to say, but I sell a point solution. Mm-hmm. And that one point solution solves one very specific problem. And I don't know how to deal with the organization if I don't find someone who cares about the one problem I'm good at. What would your advice be to that person in that situation?
You've got to find the people that will care about what you can do. You've got to find out what matters to the people that you want to matter to. And you never go toe-to-toe with your competition's strengths. That's a big mistake that we make a lot of times, even in this game. And yeah, don't get me wrong. We have a lot of different solutions, but there are absolutely very strong competitors in certain areas that we go to bat in. And I'm not going to beat Salesforce by going toe-to-toe with their strengths. That's not going to happen. I've got to find an executive or a part of the business that hates some element of my competition, and I've got to expose that opportunity and threat. It's a SWOT analysis. And I've got to ultimately uncover, like, what are the weaknesses and what are the challenges? And then again, it's back to the fundamentals. It's de-risking the decision to go with me. And it's not going to work every single time. That is why I cast such a wide net. You've got to go out and find people that are, playing in that right wheelhouse. If there's a specific industry, and, personally, I always go back to Sales Navigator, especially even if I'm trying to pitch a point solution, because, there's a lot of organizations that, you could have and focus in on the relationship and what looks like a win to them. I remember years ago, I had a CISO who was a best in breed guy. And, he would not give me the time of day. And I went out and I looked at his LinkedIn profile, and he was like blogging, and he was on all these podcasts about security. And I'm like, this guy's not going to talk to a dumb sales guy like me. I need to bring in some big guns. So I met with my chief security advisor internally, and I'm like, I need you to do me a solid. I'm going to dangle out a meeting with you, and I'm just going to dress this up like, this guy can't, an offer this guy can't refuse. And like, again, he was a best in breed guy, like somebody that's best in breed. They're not thinking about us from a security perspective. That's just no way, no how. And I sent a note to this person, and I basically, knowing what was on their LinkedIn profile, I'm like, I'm going to flatter the heck out of this guy. I'm like, I think there's a real opportunity for us to learn from you. I'm very impressed by your appearances and what your perspective in security. And I really love to broker an introduction to our chief security advisor. He's got a team of 14 that are ex-CISOs and ex-CIOs that supported Coca-Cola, GE. How can I make that happen? He responded in 30 minutes, and he said, great move, Heady. Within 6 months, we signed an 8-figure security deal. So my point is, again, focus on the person, focus on the relationship, what matters to that person. Anything is possible. And like, you also got to get out of your own head, like, because sometimes we come up with our own obstacles before we even go down and play the game. I'm willing to play any game, and I'm willing to go after any big swing because I know what's possible. You got to go after the addressable market, and the addressable market is vast, even for a point solution. Go out and find people that might care. Think about and be mindful of your competition, and go toe-to-toe with their weakness.
It's awesome. So Carson, at the end of every one of our podcasts, we always ask the same question because it's SaaS Therapy. If I'm seeing a therapist, the therapist always gives me some homework to go work on to improve. I know for me, I'm taking home, how do I do a better job at reducing the risk that someone's feeling and moving in my direction and going with me? That was the one that just rocked my world, because I've always heard, the comment of, hey, people don't want to lose something, right? They'll rather maintain a deal because they don't want to lose something versus gain something. So I've always heard that phrase, but the way you phrased it of, hey, let's reduce the risk of this choice, money. What would you want to assign out as homework assignment to all of our listeners? That's the one I'm personally taking, but what's the one you want to give out to the audience today? If you could get them to do one thing, what would that look like?
Challenge everything that you think is holding you back in sales. Some of the things that I've outlined today might sound overwhelming because I've been doing this 25 years. And I built this demand generation engine over a decade. So I have all these contacts, and, some of this stuff comes second nature to me. But believe it or not, my first year as an account executive, I got 0 rewards and insufficient results. It was the only year I ever missed goal in my entire life. And I had to meticulously study what worked, what didn't. I had to develop ruthless, selfish discipline in my schedule and jettison a lot of stuff that wasn't working, that I was spending cycles on that wasn't doing any good. And I had to drown out the noise. I had to really focus on, like, I'm going to obsess over people and process and relationships and resources, and figure out what my unique superpower was that would elevate everybody around me, my team, my partners, and my customers. And so I think the key element is look at where can you, it doesn't take a massive overhaul of your process to make a difference. In fact, that's the last thing you want to do. Small tweaks can have huge exponential gains in your outcomes. So look at where you're stuck today, where you're getting blocked. If you can't get a meeting with a certain person at a certain organization, reach out to 50 other people in that organization. You just need that one conversation. And once you have that conversation, it's like a little snowball that can become an avalanche, because now you have intel from that organization. Remember that CIO conversation that I had earlier? I managed to figure out what he was trying to solve without him telling me, and I used it to win the deal. So my point is, look at the areas where you think you're stumbling today and think about them a little bit differently. How could you focus on a different relationship? How could you go about it a different way? I had a deal a few years back where my specialist team told me, don't bother going for funding because you're not going to get it. It's the end of the year and there's not any funding available for this project. I went and found a second line in my company that cared about the net new workloads that I was driving, got him to champion me going to Judson. We got $1 million in funding in 24 hours, signed the deal. And so anything is possible, and you've got to challenge the status quo. I love the show Seinfeld, and my favorite episode is the one where George Costanza decides to do the opposite of every inclination he's ever had. Sometimes as a seller, to be better than average and everybody else, you have to do the opposite of every inclination and everything that some other ineffective seller or some ineffective manager tells you to do. You've got to lean in on the side of obsessing over solving your customers' problems. And if you do that, I have never worried about a number a day in my life, and I've had all the success I could want and more.
Oh, man, Carson, this has been awesome. Man, thank you so much for joining us. I wish we could keep going forever. I hope if people are listening that they're like, man, I wish I would keep going. But we're already over our normal limit, man. Carson, I think we need to have you back. So if you're down, let's get you back on another show and let's keep going and talking more about this. It's been awesome.
Anytime. Thank you. You guys were great.
Thanks, man. SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.